I'll bring in now Texas Republican Congressman Dr. Michael Burgess. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on to talk about the State of the Union address that's happening tonight. Obviously, this impacts many of Americans. A stat I just threw at you there from Washington Post, ABC News, of where Americans are feeling the pinch. And right now it's in their wallets, at least 40%. They feel they're worse off, according to this polling. Talk to me about what you expect to hear tonight. Many will point, something he has touted for the past year or so is this administration's job creation. But you also are seeing this, the January jobs report, jobs added versus the jobs expected here, and they have gone up. But what is the argument against job creation, at least in the past couple of years, Congressman?
Well, what you're seeing, of course, is the uptick in jobs because they were artificially suppressed during lockdowns during the coronavirus pandemic. I would submit these are also lockdowns that were continued by the Biden administration after the vaccines were developed. But look, you can expect the president to take a victory lap, but what you've shown in your polling is people will say, I'm not buying it. I know back home in my district, which is just a little north of the DFW airport, we're paying $3.10 for regular gas. In February, in Texas, you know what that means? It's going to be $4 or $5 a gallon by Memorial Day. That's what people are feeling. You can't find eggs in the Walmart, but if you do, a package or a carton of 18 eggs is going to cost almost $10. This is what people are feeling. They're feeling it in their wallets and their gas bills and their grocery bills, and they're saying, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I can't keep up with your good times.
Eggs, right? People are having a tough time finding eggs that are affordable for themselves. I mean, just break it down to something as simple as that for everyday Americans, families trying to feed their families at least. You bring this out to a federal level, you talk about immigration issues. As you know, the House Oversight Committee having a hearing right now trying to nail down the points of what's happening. Why are there so many encounters? Why is fentanyl poisoning a leading cause of death among 18 to 45? And how much is coming across this border? How does the president, as we look live here, how does the president tonight address the nation as his press secretary does, saying that the border crisis is under control, that the border is secure? When you have numbers like this on your screen, 864,000 migrant encounters, that's from October of last year to today alone. So to put it in perspective, out of all those numbers, during this administration, you have had more than 5 million encounters with CBP alone under this president. How does he say he has it under control tonight to the American people, or does he address it at all?
Well, he will address it. He will take credit for doing a great job, but the numbers don't lie. And, you know, here's the thing. If you're going to tell a believable story, maybe you should start with Once Upon a Time, because everyone in America will know this is an absolute fantasy and it's devoid from reality. But look, the fentanyl crisis is so serious. A town in the district that I represent, Carrollton, Texas, just suffered the deaths of 3 high school students because of illicit fentanyl. Look, I worked a lot several years ago in the early days of the Trump administration on what was called the opiate epidemic. It's morphed. And now the fentanyl epidemic is so much more deadly than anything we dealt with illicit opioids, which was perhaps a problem of overprescribing, never quite the bottom of it. But fentanyl, we know it's coming across the border. And the Democrats, their talking points are that, hey, this is coming across the ports of entry. It's not being brought in by illegal immigrants. The problem is you have so many people flooding those border checkpoints that Customs Border Protection, DEA, cannot do their job. They're tied up with basically housekeeping activities, trying to process the literally millions of people that are streaming into our border. Why? Because Joe Biden told them there was no border. Everyone could come in, no questions asked, and they have responded in kind.
Final question for you on this matter. Newsmax is carrying the State of the Union address as well as analysis of it as well. Many will be able to see that. Millions of Americans will be able to. If you have DirecTV, you cannot. You're going to have to turn to something else or perhaps ditch DirecTV. That's because DirecTV removed Newsmax from 13 million homes. I know a number of your colleagues have come to Newsmax's defense and really the defense of a certain viewpoint or some alleged censorship, Congressman. What are your thoughts on this? What would you like to see happen?
Well, look, the letter did go out the latter part of January. I was a signatory to that letter, and it essentially said, explain to us how this deplatforming has occurred. Why do you have so-called liberal-leaning news outlets with less viewership being carried by the platform, and yet you've excluded Newsmax or charging them exorbitant rates compared to the liberal news outlets? There's clearly a disparity. For some of us, this equates to censorship, and it really should not stand. I get it. People will say, "Oh, look, it's DirecTV is a private company; they can do what they want." But on the other hand, there is the issue of fairness and how to be equitable in administering the resource that they are selling. So that's the purpose of the letter I signed. Energy and Commerce may, in fact, do some investigation and hearing on that. We'll see. I think they should, but that's clearly within our purview to ask those questions.
I'll leave it there. Congressman Michael Burgess joining us live. We appreciate you taking the time, Congressman. Thank you.
Thank you.
As we mentioned there with the Congressman, DirecTV dropping Newsmax from their lineup, making Newsmax the second conservative channel to be deplatformed by DirecTV in the last year.